Professor Lemieux, Professor Vicky Lemieux from the School of Information at the University of British Columbia. And the University of British Columbia is situated on the traditional ancestral and unceded territory of the Musqueam people. So that's our particular First Nations here. And we're very fortunate to that we share this land with them. We've settled on it and they graciously share it with us. And it's the most beautiful place, as you might gather from the picture that I showed you and maybe some of the pictures that I'll show you in the slides later on. So uh, about us, a little bit about us. We're a multidisciplinary school. We do have one-of-a-kind graduate programs. So I teach in one of those programs, which is the Masters of Archival Studies program, which is one of very few standalone archival study programs. But we also have the Masters of Library and Information Science program, and we offer a dual degree program, which combines the Masters of Archival Studies and the Masters of Library and Information Science degree. Generally over a 3-year period is what students will, the time frame in which students will complete that. And so that gives you both degrees. We also have a Master's in Children's Literature, and we offer a Bachelor in Media Studies and a minor in Informatics. So we have a lot of programs on offer. We are one of the top ranked schools in the world for graduate education in library and information management. We do have an arts perspective. We're situated in the Faculty of Arts, which also makes us unique in looking at issues of culture and communication, heritage. It's quite multidisciplinary because we do reach out across different faculties at the university as well. We are known for exceptional student experience and engagement with our extended community and industry partners, and I'll talk about a bit about those in my presentation. And our programs will prepare you for a variety of careers that matter for tomorrow's information society. And I'm going to talk about that specifically because we're going to be talking about opportunities for information professionals in the emerging Web3 industry. So, a career in Web3. I have here the cover of a book that I would recommend on Web3 by a Canadian researcher and Web3 scholar, Alex Tapscott, who talks about what Web3 is. But essentially, some of you would be familiar. You've been using the web, no doubt. We're here on the web, through the web. But some of you may have heard of Web 1, the read internet. So that's when, the early days of the internet when, pages were stood up and you could just read them, you couldn't interact with them. And then we got Web 2, which is arguably, we're transitioning out of Web 2 now, but we're still, very much embedded in the read and write internet. So, now we could submit things to forums, we can post questions and get responses back and all of those sorts of things. But Web3 is known as the read, write, and own internet. So what's different about Web3 is not only can we do what we did with Web 1 and Web 2, we can read and write, but we can also, through the properties of things like blockchain, tokenize or create digital assets, which unlike in Web 2, when we create a digital asset, we really can't control or own it. It can get copied. A lot of artists really learn this to their chagrin, that they'll post beautiful artwork on the web and it gets copied and reproduced, and they don't gain from that at all. So the intellectual property isn't really protected. We're also seeing this with the generative AI, ChatGPT, for example, where individuals have written things, software developers have coded things, and the models are consuming all this data, and those who had created the original intellectual property are not benefiting from it. With Web3, that changes. With Web3, through the properties of things like blockchain, we can tokenize these assets so that we can maintain control over them and continue to benefit from them. And it also can be used to control the information so that our privacy is protected, because we also know that when we share things on the web 2, and even Sir Tim Berners-Lee, who invented the World Wide Web, has decried the fact that privacy is so invaded by the Web 2 business model, that we can also use Web 3 and some of its properties to gain our control back over our privacy. So there's some really exciting things that Web 3 has the potential to deliver to us, but it's still emerging. It's still emerging. But because of these properties, because of the decentralized nature, I'll talk a bit more about that, where individuals can own their own identities and their own online creations, we can reimagine our virtual world. We can reimagine cultural industries, for example. The work of the information professionals certainly can be reimagined in this new world, and it opens up all kinds of new avenues, which I do want to talk to you about. So, as I mentioned, Web3, it's not just one technology, actually. It's powered by many different technologies. So one of those very important underlying technologies is blockchain. Blockchain. You probably heard about blockchain. You're probably hearing a lot more about it these days because it was invented along with something called Bitcoin, which was arguably the first use case for the blockchain. It was very much, it is a cryptocurrency, very much designed to gain control back over the financial system for people who had really been kind of disenfranchised from the financial system, ripped off by the financial system, the traditional financial system in the 2008 financial crisis. I don't know how well you students might remember that, but there were people marching on the streets protesting the banks, and so the blockchain came out of that. That is to support this new cryptocurrency called Bitcoin, which is meant to disintermediate, to break down the banks as the intermediary between, say, you and me, if we were trying to make a financial transaction, because guess what? They couldn't be trusted, according to some, and they took a lot, very high fees, and so there was a lot of discontent. So that's really the backdrop to the invention of blockchain. So it kind of came as a side effect of this invention of Bitcoin, which you're probably hearing about because right now the price of Bitcoin is soaring again, with certain developments recently. And so people are becoming very interested in cryptocurrencies again. So blockchain, what is blockchain then? Well, it was designed to support Bitcoin, but basically what Bitcoin needed is it needed a form of record keeping. So when you and I make a transaction, the banks record all that, right? They get all the information. It's kept, the record is kept in your bank account, and the banks keep their own ledgers. Now, the new form of financial transactions, this Bitcoin, it needed to do the same thing, and it needed to do it in a trusted way, so that if I were to send you a Bitcoin, you would know that you owned and held that Bitcoin. You could trust that that Bitcoin was going to stay in your Bitcoin wallet, and that I wasn't secretly running off and double spending it. So it's paying you in Bitcoin and saying, oh, here's your payment, and then going off and spending it, on the side. So Bitcoin was designed, supported by blockchain, which uses this particular ledger, this distributed ledger, to prevent what they call the double spending problem, and to give everybody trust that when we transact with each other on this new financial platform, Bitcoin, that we could trust that what I held was what I really held. That payment stood, and I then owned that asset. That Bitcoin was mine. So it's really a new form of record keeping. And so that's why I became interested as somebody who is a professor of archival science, because I'm all about studying record keeping and teaching students about record keeping. And so I said, wow, a new form of record keeping. I've got to learn about this. And so I started to look into it. And as lots of people who have begun to study blockchain will tell you, once you start looking into it, you fall down the rabbit hole. It's a very fascinating technology and many fascinating developments. So I fell down the rabbit hole, and here we are today. But when we say it's a new form of public ledger, record keeping doesn't sound very revolutionary. Record keeping sounds pretty boring to most people, not to me, maybe not to you, hopefully not. But it's revolutionized societies before. You think back, to the Middle Ages when double entry bookkeeping was invented. That actually revolutionized trade, and or to the invention of the joint stock company. These kinds of very vanilla type of inventions can really be socially transformative. And the same is said of blockchain, because of the way that it is enabling the ownership of assets and distributed ecosystems that disintermediate the old players, the old intermediaries, the banks, the Googles, and the traditional tech companies. So this was something that was written up in The Economist as early as 2015, where this quote that I've presented to you was included in an article that they wrote about blockchain, saying, hey, Bitcoin isn't the interesting thing here. Everybody's all excited about Bitcoin. What's really interesting is how it's transforming record keeping. So I liked that. I got really excited about that. So we're really talking about a then and now scenario. So then, if we go back to the history of record keeping, we have a course on the history of record keeping at the iSchool. This is a cuneiform tablet, and if you haven't recognized it, this one is probably from Erech, which was called Uruk, Mesopotamia, circa 3000 BCE, and it's held in the Museum of Art in New York City. So if you're there, you can go and check it out. So record keeping has existed, in other words, for millennia, and it's been pretty consistent. Society has needed record keeping. Why? We've needed record keeping to capture evidence of transactions. So, business transactions. Some of these cuneiform tablets would record commercial transactions that had happened in Uruk. Some the ownership of assets, so the ownership of animals and so on. In ancient Egypt, it was to record land ownership, because the Nile would rise and fall, and people would need to prove that the land that had been underwater was theirs. So record keeping has been needed for ages to prove rights and entitlements as evidence that of business agreements, to record histories and stories and so on, and to transcend space and time in doing so, in order to weave societies together. And so over the centuries, of course, we've had all kinds of different forms of record keeping. So cuneiform tablets and papyrus and vellum, manuscripts on vellum, and to more current digital records, emails, social media posts, websites, and now blockchain records. So what makes blockchain unique is, as this visual shows you, is it is decentralized. So the way that it operates is through nodes or computer servers, basically, that are distributed. And those servers can be distributed not just within an organization, not just within a geographical, area, like a country, Canada, the United States, whatever, but globally. And in fact, with some of the blockchains, some that are what they call permissionless blockchains, they don't have a particular identity. They can just come and go, and so the number of nodes can expand and contract, and they don't have to be authorized to join the network. They just join it, and then they participate in maintaining the network through the consensus protocol, which is the way that all the different nodes in this distributed network or ledger come to an agreement about what goes into the ledger as the truth, as what should be recorded in the ledger. And it also uses cryptography in order to do that and to secure or seal up, just like, in the olden times where the king might write a secret letter to one of his generals far away and seal it up in an envelope and take a wax stamp, seal it up with his signet ring and send it off. Maybe not as secure as cryptography, but that was the secure technology in those days. And of course, cryptography these days is what we do to seal things up in the same way. So blockchain uses cryptography and distribution to provide security of the records, to make sure that they can't be manipulated or changed, or if somebody actually manages to do that, it's very evident that they have done that. In the olden days, they did the same thing. So in ancient Mesopotamia, they would bake the clay tablets so that what was written on them was secure and couldn't be altered. So you see, we teach the principles of record keeping from ancient times to now, but we teach it in a way that we just modernize it. We just bring it all forward so that all of these ancient traditions and practices can be understood in the way that they manifest now and the way that they can be applied. All right, so what are some examples of this new record keeping? So there's a project that some of my students have participated in as interns. And we do, as part of the, we have a lot of community-based learning, let me just say. And so one of the things students can do is they can work with one of our community partners, in this case, a new Web3 startup called Landano, which is using the Cardano blockchain. And what they're doing is they're empowering countries in, for example, Africa, where they didn't have land registries that were, some of them didn't have land registries at all. Some of them, the land registries were very unreliable. The records weren't accurate. The registry didn't operate reliably. So this new blockchain-based land registration system is designed to provide a more trusted type of record keeping that secures the land records from manipulation. Now, why would you need to secure the land records from manipulation? Well, of course, who owns what land is very important. That's a very valuable asset. And you can get things like land title fraud, and you want to protect people against that. But what you often see in certain countries in the global south, for example, is individuals who are public officials who sometimes can become corrupted. Maybe wealthy developers want to develop some beachfront property, and so they will bribe the public official to change the land record into their name. And this was happening. This is one of the first cases that I looked at in a project that was going to be done in Honduras. And so basically Landano, this project is taking that idea and saying, okay, let's build a really great decentralized application. That's what these Web3 blockchain-based applications are called, decentralized applications, or DApps for short. Let's build a great decentralized application that helps individuals in the global south, and now they're even doing projects in Canada to secure their land records. And so the interesting thing about this project, or one of the interesting things about this project, is there's a fellow whose face appears up there in the corner of my slide. His name is Peter Van Garderen. He's a serial entrepreneur. He invented something called Atom, and he is what I will say, he's a graduate of our program. That's the important thing here. He's a graduate of our archival studies program. I forget which year, later than the year that I graduated from, because I'm also a graduate of this program from way back when. But he's an archivist. He understands record keeping. He understands the principles of creating authoritative records, of creating trustworthy records and record keeping systems. And he's applying that knowledge to his blockchain solution, Landano, because the initial solution that I had looked at back in the 2016 period, which was one of the first solutions to look at applying blockchain in land records. That was developed by computer scientists who didn't really understand record keeping, and there were a lot of issues which I published about. And since then, I've contributed to, and my students have contributed to the development of international standards on blockchain and blockchain record keeping. And so now we're starting to see projects that are benefiting from this archival knowledge and really working with the technology to make improvements and to people's lives. So this is a really exciting project, and this is one of our graduates that we're very proud of for all of his wonderful achievements and what he's doing now. And so it gives you an idea of what you can do, like pretty much anything with this degree. There's a lot you can do. You can be an entrepreneur, you can be an innovator. So here's another project that one of our students worked on this summer, in fact. She's an MLIS, a Master's of Library and Information Science student. And she worked with one of our community partners, which is a not-for-profit arts organization based in downtown Vancouver, called 221A. I've provided the link there if you're curious. It's an artist collective, and they've been working for a number of years on reimagining what ownership means. When we say collective, an artist collective, one of the challenges in Vancouver is land is very expensive, and it's hard for artists to find working space. And so what might it mean if we were to own an asset like land collectively and use the blockchain to tokenize partial ownership in the land? We could create a new form of artist collective. And so the idea has kind of snowballed from there. And now what we're experimenting with is this node library. And the node library is really about recognizing that we create all kinds of artworks in digital form and cultural materials in digital form, and including things like non-fungible tokens. You may have heard of non-fungible tokens. I think maybe 2 or 3 years ago, they really went crazy, and there was one developed by an artist called Beeples that sold for $1 billion or something like that. The market has since, cooled down a little bit, but NFTs are still with us and they're still generating value. The wonderful thing for artists is when they tokenize their artwork in the form of a non-fungible token, they can trade it or sell it on a blockchain, and they can sell it any number of times. It can pass through owners, and a fractional amount of the sale price can come back to the original artist. Now, in the current world of artwork, that doesn't happen. The artist usually sells their artwork for a pittance, and then a gallery buys it, and then they sell it to a big collector for millions, and the artist never sees any of that. So this idea of the collective is also about creating an economy that is based on this new form of ownership, but it is a fairer form of ownership because it returns value to the creators. So we really like that. And so what this student worked on is understanding how can we store these digital assets? So distributed storage. The internet archives use distributed storage, decentralized, the Web3 storage for its archives. It's one of the reasons in the recent hack of the Internet Archive, the records were not tampered with because it protects through this cryptography and principle of distribution the records from being meddled with, or if changes are made, there are multiple copies. So this is what this student has been working with. She's been working with a group of developers through 221A to imagine what this new infrastructure is going to look like. So it's a very exciting project, and it's ongoing and still taking shape. So another one of our community partners, and again, this is, all these community partners offer internships to our students and opportunities to work with them in various capacities. So Vancouver is well known for its gaming industry. And this community partner is reimagining gaming. So I don't know if you guys are gamers who are listening in, but you know how when you're playing a game, you can get certain gameplay items, assets, depending on the games that you play, particular wands, shoes, books, whatever it might be, swords, magical stones, whatever. But those assets, you might be able to trade them within the game, but they stay within the game. They're really owned by the game. They're not owned by you, even though you've earned them and maybe even paid for them within the game itself. You can't take them out of the game. They have no value outside of the game. And what 0x Gaming is doing, they're saying, let's tokenize these assets. Let's turn them into tradable, non-fungible tokens so they can have value and you can own them even outside of the gaming platform. So this is really exciting because now it creates a new market for these digital assets. They now have value, tradable value outside of the game. If the game collapses, if the owners of the game decide they're not going to support the game anymore, or whatever happens, you still will hold your gaming assets and you can still trade them and have value and enjoy them. So it's really reimagining again this the internet as the read, write, and own internet. And these exciting kind of experiments in the Web3 are all the different types of community partners that we're working with that our students can participate and grow with and build careers with. So what kind of careers? Well, it's a funny thing, but as I mentioned to you, record keeping, this is just a new form of record keeping. So the kinds of jobs, in a way, that we've always needed to do will still be there, but they'll just be for a Web3 company. So you can do records management. So how do we make sure that our ledger records are trustworthy, that we can preserve those ledger records, they're compliant, we can manage them well? That still applies in Web3. Decentralized governance of information governance. There's some tricky aspects to that because you've got to get everybody to agree, and sometimes it's multi-jurisdictional. So I have a PhD student who's studying that and starting to work with, for example, EcoToken, which is a decentralized token looking at how you can promote sustainability in the world through carbon trading of carbon credits on the blockchain. You need to do digital preservation because we need to make sure that these ledger records persist through space and time, just like our clay tablets. Blockchain's not that user-friendly still, and some of the dApps still aren't. So there's great work to be done on user experience and user experience design. And those skills can be portable to pretty much anything. It doesn't have to just be the Web3. And then blockchains often have ecosystems around them, people that are developing and building and believing in the project. And so there's a lot of work to do in ecosystem coordination, which our students are very good at. And through the work that they do, sometimes in the iSchool, learning how to coordinate events and so on. Now, usually these kinds of jobs are very part of a multidisciplinary team, working with developers, working with business people, all kinds of people, and they're often very international. People are coming from all over the place and working remotely and working on site. And so it's a very dynamic and exciting space that's emerging here. So you can learn Web3 at UBC, obviously. And there's so many other things that you can learn here. You know, this is just one of the emerging technologies, along with artificial intelligence and many exciting topics that we cover. And we cover them with an arts perspective, so a critical perspective, looking at, you know, the promise of these technologies, but also some of the things where they fall down or they fall short or could fall short in their promise. So we don't turn away from, you know, we're not utopian in our outlook. When we look at Web3 and blockchain, we're also looking at things like, you know, cryptocurrency and the scams that have been attended with those, you know, issues around equity in the environment, issues of using too much energy for some of the protocols. So we do look critically at all of these technologies, bias in artificial intelligence and privacy issues and so on. But we do offer several courses. The course that you would take a core foundation of courses, which are the foundation of archival work. And that will give you the basis of going forward to look at specific technologies like blockchain and in the Web3 environment. And so there's a blockchain course that I teach. There's also a blockchain graduate pathway that connects you with internships with these kinds of Web3 partners that I've just mentioned. And then we also have a blockchain at UBC multidisciplinary research and education cluster, which connects you with students and community members from across Vancouver, across the world, really, because people will usually Zoom in like we're doing today. And so we had a presenter today who's based in New York, one of our former postdocs, who's now the scientific director at a new protocol, one of the fastest permissioned blockchains in the world, called Fast Hot Stuff, because we have to have a good name for it, right? So there's lots you can learn about this amazing emerging world of Web3 at UBC. And you can also go global with us. So this summer we had a summer institute, and through a special funding vehicle that University of British Columbia offers, we were able to sponsor a number of students.
Recording in progress.
Oops, and I'm just about wrapped up here. So we went to Crypto Valley, Switzerland, and you can see there we had a wonderful time. We learned all about the latest developments in blockchain and Web3 from Crypto Valley, Switzerland, one of the hearts of the industry in the world. And so there's the opportunity to do that as well. So thank you very much. That is all I have to say for now. I look forward to your questions, and of course, we look forward to hearing from you. So yeah, I'll just open it up if you have any questions. Okay, I see something coming up in the chat here. Okay, so what kind of specific technical skills do the blockchain courses provide? Does the program provide the opportunity to explore opportunities in new technologies like Web3, as well as in physical archive preservation and conservation. Okay, so I'm going to answer the last part of your question first. So yes, our program covers the traditional, physical archive preservation. We have a course in that, taught by a superb conservator. And we also offer courses in digital records preservation. So, which would be, more traditional digital. I say traditional because we've had digital records now for quite some time. Think of email and how far back that goes now. Um, so we offer courses in all of that. I teach when students come into the program, I'm teaching a core course called Archives and Technology, which is exploring with students how technology has changed and transformed archival work, and how new technologies like, for example, artificial intelligence, um, less new, but very ubiquitous technologies like digitization can be used in archives to help archivists perform their work, like appraisal of records, arrangement and description, but also making archives more accessible. So we do offer a complete range of courses that are technically focused. And when students come in, for example, to archives and technology, we do get a range of students. So some of the students have very technical backgrounds. I think I've got a student this year who has a computer science degree already, right from students who have studied music, philosophy, who are not technical, and maybe not confident in technical, engaging with technology. So what I try to do in this course is I try to expose them to the different ways, all the students, to, no matter their background, to the different ways that technology is being applied in archives and transforming archival work. And then we offer a series of labs, which are by and large, little recipes that we can do. Like we might apply a sentiment classification algorithm to analyze some archival text, for example, or handwriting technology to analyze a handwritten archival document. These are all little labs that we can do to experiment and explore and think critically about these technologies. So the idea is for those students who are less technical to build up confidence in their ability to use these technologies and apply them and understand them, and for everyone to think critically about, oh, wow, look at the way that this algorithm classified this word in this document. Why did it classify it as a negative word versus a positive word? And so we start to think about bias in algorithms and the impact of these technologies for authoritativeness of records, for trust in archives through these labs. And then you can move into more technical courses. So let's say my blockchain course, it has been technical in the past. I'm redesigning I always redesign the course, every year to kind of incorporate new material and what I think is important for students to learn. But in previous years, we have actually built a digital asset database on a blockchain, Hyperledger Fabric blockchain, and deployed smart contracts onto that digital asset management system. So we have had quite technical exercises in previous years. I'm not sure that we need to build an entire asset management system this year. So probably this year, we're going to experiment with a new form of tokenized digital record keeping called verifiable credentials. And I'll just get students to generate their own verifiable credentials, to exchange verifiable credentials, to issue verifiable credentials. So there's always something a little bit technical, because I think that's really a great way to start to feel comfortable with technology. And if you're going to work with it, or if you're an archivist and you have to engage with that technology, you understand it well enough so that if there's problem with a record keeping system that's maybe a blockchain based record keeping system, you can argue authoritatively as to what needs to change and you can understand what needs to change in order to make that a better record keeping system or a compliant record keeping system. So that's an important part of the learning process. And then if you're really ambitious, you can go across campus. We have two courses, Foundations of Blockchain and Blockchain Software Engineering, which are also open to our students. And you can take those courses as well. So you could really, really ramp up your technical skills if you wanted to. It's really a matter of choice. And so we can mentor and guide you in where you would like to take your career. It's really your own journey. And we're here to help facilitate it. Okay, so I hope that answered your question. Um, do I have other recommended readings? Well, sure. I would recommend you read my book, which is called Searching for Trust, Blockchain Technology in an Age of Disinformation. So there I'm talking all about, a lot of what's around us these days, a lot of disinformation. And what does blockchain give us in this time of disinformation? What does it deliver to us in terms of informational certainty, or what some scholars are calling epistemic security in a time when we face a lot of epistemic uncertainty? So that was published by Cambridge University Press in 2022, called Searching for Trust. You can Google it. And I highly recommend that book, of course. Anything else that you'd like to ask about the school or other courses? We'd be happy to answer your questions. I think maybe our educational services director, Kevin, you're there. Maybe you could put your email in the chat and students can reach out to you with additional questions if they'd like to. But yeah, hopefully we've been able to give you a flavor of what it might be like at the iSchool. As I said, we've got a beautiful campus in a beautiful part of the world doing amazing work. So we invite you to come.
Yes. Thank you, Vicky. And I think perhaps wraps it up. Thank you, everyone, for joining our talk, and apologies again for the scheduling mix-up. I'm glad you're able to make it. Hopefully you all enjoyed INFOcon, and I've shared my email in the chat, so please do give me a shout if you have any questions about our programs and our admission process. And this recording will be shared, I believe, via the INFOcon website as well.
Okay,
All
thanks
right.
everyone.
All right. Have a good evening. Thank you, everyone. Take care.